Today we'll be discussing some important short answer questions in oral surgery. First, we will be talking about types of genioplasty. There are mainly four types of genioplasty: reduction genioplasty, augmentation genioplasty, lengthening genioplasty, and straightening genioplasty. Reduction genioplasty can be performed in anteroposterior and vertical planes. It can be done in both anteroposterior and vertical planes depending on the needs of the patient. There are three types of procedures under reduction genioplasty. First, horizontal osteotomy and setback of the fragment. Now in this, as shown in the first diagram, excess amount of bony wedge which is left behind is excised and the segment is fixed. Second, in the vertical plane, two horizontal osteotomy cuts are made. The lower cut is completed first, then the superior cut is done and the bony wedge is removed. The inferior segment is then pushed upwards and stabilized. Third, vertical reduction and posterior pushback. Augmentation genioplasty. The surgical procedure for augmentation genioplasty is as follows. The entire inferior border of the symphysis is degloved by using vestibular incisions. The digastric muscles are separated from the mandible to reduce the tension after advancement. Generally, the anteroposterior dimension of symphysis is about 8 to 12 mm, so the same amount of advancement is possible. The horizontal osteotomy cut is made at least 4 to 5 mm below the apices of canines. The cut is completed through both buccal and lingual cortices. The segment is mobilized inferiorly and forward with the help of osteotome. This mobilized segment is pedicled over geniohyoid muscle and some amount of lingual periosteum. Any bony interferences for advancement are removed under direct vision. The mobilized segment should then be advanced into desired position by using towel clips, and then the external facial contour should be checked and the fragment is positioned to the final desired level. It can be fixed to the superior border with two intraosseous wiring at canine region or two mini bone plates. Alloplastic augmentation can be done using the same incision but which is relatively short in length. On both sides, little tunneling is done to create a pocket into which the onlay grafting material can be slided for better fixation. Straightening genioplasty. Straightening genioplasty is indicated in patients with facial asymmetry like condylar hyperplasia, temporomandibular joint ankylosis, in which complete correction of asymmetry cannot be achieved by appropriate jaw osteotomies. Lengthening genioplasty. Lengthening genioplasty is done in patients with short vertical facial height with class 1 and class 2 deep bites. After horizontal osteotomy, the segment is pushed inferiorly and the bone graft is sandwiched in between to increase the height. Now moving on to the second question, enumerate principles of treatment of fracture. There are four basic principles of management of fracture, which are reduction, fixation, immobilization, rehabilitation. Reduction, it is done for re-establishment of form, function and occlusion with minimum morbidity. Reduction is of two types, open and close reduction. Under close reduction, pre-injury occlusion, maxillomandibular fixation for 4 to 6 weeks, restoring the occlusion and reducing and stabilizing the fracture segments are fundamental goals of the maxillomandibular fixation techniques. Internal fixation. Spissel in the 1970s applied the standards of orthopedic surgery to mandibular fractures. The goal of Spissels were to achieve primary bone healing with normal function through four basic principles: anatomic reduction of bone fragmentation, anatomic reduction of bone fragments, stable internal fixation of the fractures, preservation of the blood supply and early functional mobility. Principles applied to application of plates for fixation of mandibular fractures. Restoration of the pre-injury occlusion using temporary maxillomandibular fixation techniques. All fracture sites should be adequately exposed and reduced before the application of any hardware. Loose screws must be replaced with an emergency screw. Plates are slightly overbent to close the lingual aspect of the fracture. Minor bone recontouring if there is irregularities on the bone cortex. Poor plate will cause fracture placement and tightening of the screws. Screw holes are prepared under irrigation. Monocortical fixation. Mini plate. Michelet and Champy introduced a technique that uses transoral, malleable, non-compression plates applied with monocortical screws. A class 3 lever will exhibit tensile forces at its upper surface and compressive forces at its lower surface when loaded. A line of zero stress occurs when the tensile forces become compressive forces in this area called the neutral zone. Ideal osteosynthesis line of tension at the base of alveolar process, behind the mental foramen, below the root apices and above the inferior alveolar nerve, at the angle of the jaw on broad surface of the external oblique ridge as high as possible, in anterior region between the mental foramina, in addition to subapical plate, another plate near the lower border of the mandible. These are the diagrams showing ideal osteosynthesis line. Now, immobilization. During this phase, fixation is retained to stabilize reduced fragments into their normal anatomical position until clinical bony union takes place. Now, we will be talking about differences between cellulitis and abscess. In cellulitis, the pain is diffused. In abscess, the pain is localized. Size will be larger in cellulitis, whereas in abscess the size is smaller. Cellulitis, the cellulitis has diffuse borders. The abscess is well circumscribed. Cellulitis, on palpation, it is derived to indurated. Abscess is fluctuant. Pus is absent in cellulitis. It is present in abscess. Duration of cellulitis is about 1 to 5 days, whereas abscess takes 4 to 10 days. The color is red in cellulitis. Abscess has a shiny center. The consistency is board-like in cellulitis, whereas abscess has a soft center. The progression, it increases in progression, and abscess decreases. It is a decreasing in progression. In cellulitis, anaerobic bacteria are found. In abscess, anaerobic or mixed bacteria are found, whereas in cellulitis, aerobic bacteria were there. The seriousness of cellulitis is greater, whereas abscess it is less. Now, we'll talk about advantages of early decompression in Ludwig's angina. So, we would want to do early decompression so that the pressure of edematous tissues is reduced on the airway, reducing respiratory embarrassment. Prompt drainage should suppuration develop. For obtaining specimen of culture and sensitivity, so we can detect the microorganisms and accordingly drugs can be given. Allows placement of drain which may be valuable to drain pus collection as time progresses and irrigation of tissues at regular intervals. Now we'll be discussing about indications of neurectomy in trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal neuralgia, so neurectomy will be indicated when in patients whom craniotomy cannot be done because of age and systemic diseases, professions which require more attentive work. So we cannot be these patients cannot be put on medications because they need to get back to their work. Drivers, which are a driver, building worker and chefs. Now we will discuss about the precautions which should be taken to prevent soft and hard tissue injuries during using dental extraction forceps. Precautions to prevent soft tissue injuries. First, proper holding of forceps. Firm grip on tooth. Soft tissues should not be held with the forceps. Beaks of the forceps should be apical to the CEJ. Proper retraction prior to use of forceps. Avoid nerve injury. Avoid injury to opening of the salivary duct. Lips should be protected during forceps closure. Slippage of forceps can injure soft tissues, so proper grip and support of the support should be taken. Proper trunk retraction. If forceps extraction is not possible or if laceration of soft tissue occurs, open extraction can be done. Precautions to prevent hard tissue injury. For difficult extraction, open extraction is preferred. Bone can be attached to soft tissue after retraction, so it should be observed carefully. Chances of fracture alveolus can increase soft tissue laceration, so intraoral periapical radiograph should be observed carefully. During extraction of maxillary third molars, there are chances of fracture of maxillary tuberosity, so proper grip of forceps and support of bone. In osteomyelitis cases, mandible fracture can occur. Forceps should not be used to crush the bone. If open extraction is indicated, it should be performed directly. Alveoloplasty should be performed if uneven bone after extraction is present. Suturing is advised for open bone after extraction. After traumatic injuries, dry socket may occur. Signs for dry socket should be checked and the patient should be recalled. Winter's line. Now the position and depth of the impacted mandibular molars can be determined by means of George Winter's Bohr lines. Now Winter described 3 imaginary lines drawn on standard radiograph with different colors such as white, amber and red. White line, it is drawn along the occlusal surfaces of the erupted mandibular molars and extended over the third molar region posteriorly. The axial inclination of the impacted tooth can be seen. Amber line, it is drawn from the surface of the bone on the distal aspect of the third molar to the crest of interdental septum between the first and second mandibular molar. This line represents the margin of the alveolar bone covering the third molar. Red line, it is an imaginary line drawn perpendicular from amber line to an imaginary point of application of elevator. It indicates depth of the impacted tooth. If red line is more than 5 mm, extraction is difficult. Every additional mm renders the removal of impacted tooth 3 times more difficult. Now we will be seeing the classification of dental elevators. The dental elevators are classified according to the form, which is straight. Examples are Miller and Pott elevator, angular Cryer elevator, crossbar Winter elevators, curved Cryer's apexo elevator, and pick type, which is the root tip pick. Now these can be classified according to the portion of the tooth they are designed to remove. The entire tooth, which is Copeland elevator, roots broken at the gingival margin, apexo elevators, root broken of the halfway to the apex, Winter elevator. Classification of elevators according to the working tip shape, which is straight, triangular, pick type. Now the important classification is classification based on the mechanical advantage. So wedge principle, mechanical advantage is 2.5. Example is small apexo elevator. Second, lever and fulcrum principle, mechanical advantage is 3. Example is Copeland elevator. Wheel and exhale, mechanical advantage is 4.6. Example, crossbar elevator. Now this is a diagram showing the wheel and exhale principle. Now we will be talking about the absolute contraindications of dental extractions. Extraction is absolutely contraindicated in the following patients: having uncontrolled diabetes, leukemia, renal failure, cirrhosis of liver, within 6 months of myocardial infarction, that is after bypass surgery or stents. If a bypass surgery or stents are given in at that time, 6 months extractions are not done. Teeth in recent irradiated areas within 6 months to 1 year. Teeth in area of central hemangioma, arteriovenous malformation, aneurysm. In the first and last trimester of pregnancy, extractions are absolutely contraindicated. Site of malignant tumor. Now, our last question is complications of exodontia. Now, Complications of extractions are as follows: failure to secure anesthesia, remove the tooth and failure to remove the tooth with either forceps or elevators. Fracture can occur of the crown of the tooth being extracted, root of the tooth being extracted, alveolar bone, maxillary tuberosity, adjacent or opposing tooth, or fracture of the mandible. Dislocation of the adjacent tooth and temporomandibular joint can occur. A displacement of the root into the soft tissues into the maxillary antrum. Excessive hemorrhage can occur during tooth removal, on completion of extraction, or during extraction and post-operatively. Finally, damage to the gums, lips, inferior alveolar, lingual nerve, and tongue and floor of the mouth can occur. There can be post-operative pain due to damage to hard and soft tissues, dry socket, acute osteomyelitis of the mandible, traumatic arthritis of the TMJ, post-operative swelling due to edema, hematoma formation, infection, trismus, creation of oroantral fistula, respiratory arrest, cardiac arrest, and syncope. These were the complications of extraction. Thank you.